So it's nearly been 2 years since I ran my first 100-mile race at Skydive Ultra course. And to mark this 2-year reunion, I will be returning to that race, Skydive Ultra, to run the 200-mile distance. 200-mile races are far less common across America. There's something like only 10 races at the 200-mile distance. Far fewer athletes can complete that distance or even want to try. I think the biggest factor there is sleep deprivation. To run a 100-mile race, you usually have to go one night without sleep or very little sleep. And for the 200-mile race, it could be, depending on the course, it could be anywhere from 2 nights, 3 nights, it could be a week. And with those longer 200-mile races, you're going to have some sleep, obviously. But with this Skydive 200, going into this, I don't really have a set plan, like a sleep schedule. The race cutoff is 72 hours. The course record is 55 hours. I would love to run it in less than 48 hours and win the race. That would be incredible. Set a new course record. I don't know if that's realistic. I don't know, because I've never ran near 200 miles. My longest race so far is 150 miles. Or technically, it ended up being 155 miles because I got lost and added a few miles to the race. But going into the Skydive Ultra, I'd like to talk about it just briefly here. Skydive Ultra 200. So the course, it's in the sugarcane fields. It's like agricultural land, and it's set at a skydiving place, Spaceland Skydive, in Clewiston, Florida. You can see Lake Okeechobee, a giant lake there, and there's sugarcane fields, and it's a 7.25 mile loop. So I end up running 28 loops of 7.25 miles long through the sugarcane fields, and then back, returning to the Spaceland Skydive, the host company for the Skydive Ultra. So it's kind of cool with Skydive because you can choose to jump out of a plane, parachute down before the start of the race. I did it for my first race, the Skydive Ultra 100 miler. I began the race by skydiving down. And then last year, at my 1-year reunion, the 150 miler that I ran, I chose not to skydive prior to the race. It's optional. And with the 200 miler, I'm not going to either, because I just want to focus all my attention and energy on completing the run. So a little bit about my training leading up to the Skydive 200 miler. I have not raced in 3 months, which is a long span of time for me personally to not race. I was on a streak where every 5 weeks I was running a 100-mile race. And I found that worked for me. It kept me mentally sharp and confident at the starting line of a 100-mile race. And I think a lot of people can go into a 100-mile race really worried about the finish, but I got to the point where I was relatively confident about going into the race. 100 miles. And then last year for the 150 miler, I was racing frequently leading up to that. I raced Daytona in early December, Daytona 100. I raced Krupski 100 early January. And then Skydive 150 was late January. And that worked out well. I had a few injury issues because of the fact that I was racing so frequently. From Daytona, I had turf toe, which is a pain in the bottom of your foot, where your toes are on your feet. And then I also, from Krupski, I also got some like tibialis anterior pain. So, leading up to the 200, I decided to focus more on regular miles, weekly miles, training. For instance, 2.5 months ago, I started a daily running streak where I ran every single day without rest days. I've been running for 15 years. I had never committed to a daily running streak before. And I wasn't sure how it was going to take it, but I feel great. I feel like it was a very smart move on my part. Since I wasn't racing frequently or at all over the last 3 months, a daily running streak I think really helped. Also, I didn't do any very long training runs, but I did about 6 or 7 training runs of 13 miles. I think I did a 17-mile training run and a 20-mile training run. And some regular strength training too, squats, some dumbbell weightlifting, some leg lifts and ab work, a core training workout. So going into the Skydive 200-mile race, I'll talk briefly about my competition. I think there may be 6 or 7, maybe 8 competitors in the Skydive 200-mile race, which is last year, the first year that Skydive Ultra offered the 200-mile distance. There were only 4 people that signed up. 2 of the 4 people finished. Dave Krupski set a course record, 55 hours out at Skydive Ultra, 200-miler. And then Sally Libinati, I think she finished somewhere between like 70 or 72 hours. Could be a little faster. I'm not really clear on that. But so Dave Krupski is now my competitor. He's returning to defend his title in the Skydive Ultra 200-mile race. Dave Krupski is a phenomenal runner. He has a long history. He's a coach. He's a race director. He has a long history of being a good competitive ultra marathon runner. For instance, he's ran Badwater 135 from Death Valley, California, Badwater Basin, up to Mount Whitney. It's an infamous race. He's run that. He's been a top 5 finisher in that race. He's ran it multiple times. He has also ran a 175-mile race, Ultra Milan Sanremo in Italy. I believe he ran his first 100 miles in the 175-mile race in 16 hours. That was a few years ago, but recently he just did a training run around his neighborhood where he ran 100 miles doing loops around his neighborhood in 18 hours, which is incredible. So he's definitely the favorite going into this race. The funny thing is the 2 times he and I have raced together, he's also a Florida ultra runner, I beat him at the Keys 100 and at Javelina. He dropped out of Javelina. He was having an issue with his heel. But it's just kind of funny that this will be our showdown, and he's likely to win. I'm going to try to give it my all to take him down, but we'll see how it goes. The other competition that comes to mind that I want to talk about is Chris Stevens. Last year he attempted to do the 200-mile race, Skydive 200, and he came up short. I think he ended up running about 170 miles out of the 200. So he's still an incredible runner, and I'm sure he's coming back to finish it this time and do well. So he recently, just a few months ago, ran 300 miles in 6 days at Icarus. Icarus is a race in Florida as well. It's a timed race. So it was a 6-day timed race, and he ran over 300 miles. So he's definitely a contender to win the Skydive 200. I wish I could tell you more of my competition, but I haven't really looked into it too thoroughly. I just know that Dave Krupski and Chris Stevens are definitely competitors, and I'd like to show up Skydive 200, get my first 200-mile finish, at least do it in 72 hours. That's the cutoff. That's the base goal. An awesome goal would be to beat the current record, 55 hours at Skydive 200. I don't know if that's realistic. I'm not a high mileage runner. I'm more like a 50-mile, 60-mile a week runner. The course record would be awesome, the current course record, to get that. Or to run sub 48 hours would be amazing. To run over 200 miles, run back-to-back sub 24-hour 100-mile races. Back-to-back to make it a 200-mile race. So that would be an ultimate goal, to go sub 48 hours in the 200. So Skydive Ultra 200, it's 2 weeks away. I just wanted to make this video to talk about my thoughts going into it. Hope you like it. Thumbs up, like the video, subscribe, ask me questions. Thanks for watching. Bye.